Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. Tonight is all about the animals and we're going to see some wild things that you will never forget. We even have a local celebrity dropping into studio. Hopefully he's on time. He's a bit of a slow poke. But first, let's chat about animal rights, and who better to teach us than our first guest, the founding lawyer of Breder Law, Western Canada's first exclusive animal law firm. She is Rebeka Breder. Rebeka, so nice to see you.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Great to see you.
So nice to see you. Okay, this has been on my mind for a while. When we talk about animal rights, what do we mean? Because clearly there's no universality to animal rights, right? Like we can farm and eat some animals, we can domesticate and keep some animals as pets, and then some animals are quite protected that you can't even get close to them, right? So when we talk about animal rights, what does that mean?
What's animal rights? Well, sometimes it's easier for me to explain what animal rights is not. Okay. So when I say animal rights, and when a lot of animal rights activists and protection lawyers talk about animal rights, I'm not talking about the right to vote. I'm not talking about the right to marry, the right to drive. I'm talking
Maybe
about
someday.
Yeah, well, no, not even someday. No, not even someday. But really, when we talk about animal rights in a serious way, what we're talking about is for an animal's inherent right to be able to live without harm, without being used for only human purposes, to be able to live freely. Mm-hmm. And now, again, what does that mean? Does that mean, we're going to let cats and dogs and roam around the streets without any control? No, we have to use our common sense. It really, when it comes down to it, animal rights is to ensure an animal's inherent right to live with dignity without being used and abused for human purposes.
So is there a codified bill of animal rights as there would be for human rights?
Sadly, there is no such thing in Canada and in most places around the world.
And is that because animals do, for better or worse, carry out different functions, whether it is for food consumption, whether it is as pets? Is that why we don't have a universality around this idea?
Probably. I mean, there's such a divide between those who really believe that animals are not here on this planet to be used and eaten or really used in any way for human purposes. And then there are those who believe that, sure, I love eating cow, or I love hunting deer, or I love going to Africa and shooting a giraffe so I can mount the giraffe's head on the wall or something like that.
I love how you went from the least offensive to the most offensive in your examples.
Well, because, and then there's a little bit of in between. Yeah. But generally speaking, I think it is so hard to find that middle ground. But that said, I think most of us can agree that, just listen, when you hear about a story on the news about someone being horrendously cruel to a cat, let's say, ripping, okay, I'm going to spare the details,
sure.
but
animal abuse, we know that that's wrong.
Right. There's this visceral reaction that it is wrong, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you'll find common ground with most people. And then where it gets a bit tricky is, when do our feelings about how we use animals diverge?
Right.
There are those, like I said, they just don't want to have anything to do with having animals used in their own life. So anything from eating, wearing, going to a zoo or aquarium, they just feel that, myself included, that animals deserve respect and they deserve to be living as freely as possible.
Right. So now you're not a criminal prosecutor. You're not prosecuting animal abuse cases. You're an animal law lawyer. So who are your clients? I know you're going to say, oh, it's the animals, but someone is, hiring you. So can you explain sort of your role in animal law in general for people who might not understand it?
Yeah, so I'm an animal law lawyer in private practice. If there's one type of case I do not do, it's animal cruelty, at least now, because animal cruelty is done by government lawyers, government prosecutors. They're the ones who prosecute. Because it's a crime, exactly. So it's government lawyers who take that on. I'm hired by mainly individuals and organizations. For individuals, it's things like mostly dealing with companion animal type of issues. So pet custody, that's a huge issue. Who gets the dog or cat upon separation?
Right.
Or if there's a dispute with an animal rescue organization, they gave the animal to one person, but the original guardian is like, no, I want that animal back.
Oh.
So it's like determining who gets the companion animal. Defending dogs is a big one. I'm not the right person to call if you were bit by a dog.
Okay.
I'm the one who defends dogs. I basically take on cases where I feel I could either help an individual animal or where I feel that I can hopefully advance the state of animal law in BC and in Canada, where I try and advance the interests of animals under the law. So that's things like recognizing animals as more than just property. We know technically they're considered property, but I always try to argue, especially depending on the context, like pet custody, for example, that we need to be looking at these cases differently. We can't be considering animals like the chairs that we're sitting on.
Right.
But that
you
they're
were quite
more
involved in the recent amendments to pet custody legislation, right?
Well, kind of in the background, I submitted this long submission, 8 to 9 pages or whatever it was to government. The government's making changes to the Family Law Act that applies when a couple separates. And I really, really wanted to see provisions dealing with companion animals. And the BC government, this is the first legislation of its kind anywhere in Canada. Wow. United States already has something like this in some of its states. But there were 3 main things I wanted to see. One was that the legislation will look at the best interest of animals. The other is that the court could order shared custody, and the other is that small claims could deal with these types of issues. And so the government listened to 2 of the 3.
What was the one that they didn't listen to?
The big one that is fantastic is that the legislation is going to incorporate the best interest of animals. So the judges must consider what is in the best interest of an animal when deciding who gets the animal. Small claims also has jurisdiction to hear these types of cases, but the one issue that the government did not listen and take my recommendation was that shared custody at the Supreme Court level should be ordered. So right now, a Supreme Court judge does not have that power. But in small claims, at least according to my interpretation of the law of Small Claims Act and some of the cases I've already had, the judges have agreed with me, shared custody is still allowed, but under different legislation.
Right. So proving that animal law does have implications on our day-to-day life as well.
Animal law,
Really cool.
you'd be so surprised, when you think about it, animal law really does affect every day of our lives, whether you're a companion animal owner, whether you love animals, whether you want to go to the zoo, although I would say don't go to the zoo or aquarium for that matter. But animals are all around us. You walk down the street, you hear birds in the trees.
Totally,
First thing you hear in the morning when you wake up, if your windows are open, you see people walking their dogs on the street and other types of animals sometimes too.
Well, you're clearly at the forefront of that law and doing a lot of influential work. So thanks for that. And thanks for your time tonight, Rebeka.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Folks, one of the most interesting and influential lawyers in the entire province. She's animal law lawyer Rebeka Breder. Now, after some business, we'll talk to a man who reached down a tiger's throat and lived to tell about it. He's a veterinarian who travels BC to save animals by, yes, removing bizarre objects that they swallowed. I promise you're in for a treat. Up next.